Hi everyone, we're going to be starting our new digital painting unit. This is the kind of painting that I do outside of class. I'm going to show you the techniques that I use to do this kind of grayscale glazing that builds up to color. We have to start with some basic tutorials because there is a bit of a learning curve here. So bear with me, it'll make a lot more sense once you've given it a try. So the number one tool we're going to be using is the brush tool, and the shortcut for that is B. So let's go over a few basic things about how the brush tool works. On the top menu bar, if you click this little arrow, it gives you a small drop-down window where you can change the size of the brush, the hardness of the brush, and you can select which brush you'd like to use. Now your folders will look different than mine, but that's okay because we're only going to be using the default brush to start. The hardness value controls how sharp the edge of the brush is. This stroke is with a brush that has 100% hardness. This one has 0%, and you can see that the edges are very soft and fuzzy. So there are a couple of shortcuts you're going to want to learn to use to speed up your brush use. You might remember the square brackets can increase or decrease the size of the brush, but there's an even faster way to do it. If you hold down the Alt key and then click and hold down the right mouse button, you can then, by sliding the mouse left and right, increase or decrease the size of the brush. At the same time, if you move the mouse up or down, you can control the hardness, make it either hard-edged or soft-edged. So that's a really fast, easy way to adjust your brush without having to go up and click on a menu. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is practice some gradient scales, just like you would do with pencil. We're going to learn how to start with a dark value and transition smoothly to a light value. So there's a couple different ways to do this, and I'm going to show you quickly why the obvious way may not be the best way. So you might start by going up to your color picker here and choosing black, and then coming down and painting a nice strip of black. Then you've got to go up and choose a slightly less black value and come down and paint a strip of that, and you can keep repeating this, but there's two problems. The first is that it's very time consuming to have to drag your cursor back up to click this color picker box each time you want a new value. We can speed this process up a lot by using a shortcut. When you're on the brush tool, if you hold down the Alt key, you immediately get the eyedropper tool, which allows you to click on any color or value, and Photoshop will select that right away. So it's much faster to go up and just sample from the bar directly above us, rather than having to go all the way up to the right to that color window. But while this is faster, it's not solving the second problem, which is that we've got these hard edges between each value. This is not a smooth transition at all. We can try to fix this by switching to a soft-edged brush. Hold down the Alt key, hold down the right mouse button, move your cursor up and down until the edge gets fuzzy. And that does make a somewhat nicer edge, but the problem here is we still have to sample a new color every single time we paint a line, and that's just too much sampling. So how do we solve that? First of all, I want you to make sure that your settings on the menu bar are set the same as mine. Your flow should be 100%, and these little target-looking icons should not be selected. They shouldn't be dark. We're going to change the opacity. I want you to put the opacity down to about 30. And I'm just going to add a little green strip here so that you can sort of see what's happening, because what this does is it makes the paintbrush act like it's painting watercolor. Every layer is a little transparent, but the more layers you put over top of each other, like glazing, the darker and more opaque it becomes. So you can see how I can see a little bit of the green bar until I start painting over the same area multiple times. With a drawing tablet, that just means lifting up the stylus and then putting it back down to draw. With a mouse, it means letting go of the mouse button and then clicking it again. So it is going to take a little bit of practice to get used to how this works. Whatever color or value you sample is the darkest value that you can get, but you'll only get that value if you layer multiple layers on top of each other. So you can start by sampling some black and then starting to paint multiple layers to create that black edge. But then, as you start painting to the left, use fewer layers, and you can see that you start to get dark grays instead. Now you can go back up and sample directly from your reference and then continue to paint, or you can start sampling directly from the grays that you're creating on your own gradient. That just saves you even more time, speeds up the whole process. So you can see by using this method that you can get a very, very soft transition with very few brush strokes visible and not a lot of moving the cursor around. Alright, so you're going to try this on the file I attached to the web page in just a moment, but there's two more things I want to show you. First of all, you can see that our reference is in a nice, crisp rectangle, and my version definitely is not. Well, how do I do that if I'm using a soft-edged brush? There's no way I can stop at exactly the right point, and the soft-edged brush won't give me the crisp edge I need. Solving this problem involves clipping masks, and that's the second key part of this technique. Clipping masks basically keep you from being able to paint outside the lines. So ideally, you set up your shape first, make a clipping mask, and then paint over top of it. And you can do all your blending, but nothing will go outside the lines. So that's already set up for you on the tutorial image. And lastly, a couple tips that might make this a little easier. One of those little target icons, the one that's right beside the opacity, allows you to control how opaque your brush strokes are by how much pressure you put if you're using a drawing tablet. If you press really hard, you'll get the darkest value you've selected. If you press lighter, you'll get a more transparent and lighter value. The end result is almost like drawing with pencil. Some people find pressure sensitivity a little hard to get the hang of, but it's something that you should try out and see whether you like it or not. And lastly, if you're really having trouble with edges and getting those edges to blend, you can always try using the blur tool, which is this little tool on the side that looks like a drop of water. If you select that and you brush back and forth over the edge, Photoshop will blur the edges a little bit, and that can help them blend together. Avoid using this a lot because it does tend to make things look fuzzy and artificial, but if you need it, it's there as a backup. And one last thing, try to make sure that you're using the biggest brush that you can. The smaller the brush, the more brush strokes you're going to get and the longer it's going to take.